How's it going, y'all? Welcome to LUMIX Live this week. We've got a really casual stream for today. Normally, I have a bunch of stuff, usually kind of prepared to, kind of cover and walk you through different settings. But given that I wasn't 100% sure if I was going to actually be here for this stream this week, I didn't really have as much prep time to kind of put together super definitive topics to talk about. So instead, let's just take this time. I've got a couple things that I want to talk about because I have some questions that people have asked about things like power solutions and cages and stuff like that. And I want to talk about like the kit that I've been using for a little bit, just kind of give you some examples. So yeah, we're just kind of like, hanging out, being able to answer various questions. There's been some questions in different chats about like live streaming and, how do you set your camera up for it and things you want to be aware of. So we're going to cover some of those topics as well. But if you got questions or topics that you want to, kind of discuss, drop them in the chat. As you can see, a couple people are doing, tag at LUMIX USA. It just helps me see them a little bit easier. So if I'm not responding to something that you're asking, make sure that you're tagging at LUMIX USA. It's a little bit easier for me to see it. And yeah, we'll kind of go through basically as much as we can and just kind of have a kind of relaxed, chill conversation. Before we jump into that, if you're in the US, you can take a look at LUMIX Pro Services if you've just picked up a camera or you've got a new camera in general. You can get yourself registered either through the QR code that's on the screen now or there's a link down in the description. The red tier is free. If you've purchased the camera, you get that just by purchasing the camera. It's going to get your added 3-year extended warranty on top of your new purchase. But if you're someone who, either put your cameras through a lot harder use or you just want to have something that's, a higher level for peace of mind, you also have the platinum level tier, which is a paid level service. Get you all the same benefits of red, but on top of that, you get 2-day repairs with next day shipping for both ways. You get 20% off out of warranty repairs, so it lessens that burden for like accidental damage. You also get annual sensor cleanings and calibrations and firmware updates and all that kind of fun stuff if you want to have us keep your equipment up to date, up to speed for you throughout the years of you owning it. And you also get a membership hotline access. So if you'd prefer to speak to someone for troubleshooting, you have access to the phone number, which would be 9 a.m. to 5 p.m. East Coast time in the U.S., Monday through Friday. So I encourage you to take a look at those if you've just got a camera. They can be great resources for, kind of just supporting your purchase over the years. Again, links are down in the description. You can take a look at those. Yeah, so let's take a look. We've got a couple people dropping in and getting us some questions here. Rhett is here. How's it going, Rhett? Any major updates for the LUMIX S9? At this moment, I don't have any information as far as like firmware updates or anything like that with any of the cameras that we have on the market. Obviously, as we get closer to when something may happen, we'll always be talking about it here and we'll cover it in depth and all that kind of fun stuff. So if you're looking for that kind of information, make sure to, get subscribed. If you're someone who prefers being on newsletters or email subscription lists, make sure you get yourself on the email list, stuff like that. Or just follow us on social. You'll also always get the notification on social. Or more importantly, over on Discord. The Discord platform has a ton of amazing conversations happening. We have an entire section for announcements, entire section for suggestions that you have for our team, for the products, all that kind of fun stuff. That's another really good resource to kind of keep up to date with that stuff if things come out before, like our weekly live stream would be scheduled. So. Let's hear. Michael says, I know that I ask this every single time that I'm here, but where's my EVA 2? Put the S1II features in a box with variable ND, XLR, 32-bit float, and optical low-pass filter. Yeah, I mean, we'll definitely pass that kind of stuff on to the engineering teams and the product planning teams. It's good to know that people are still looking for those kind of products. Obviously, no clue about EVA or Vericam as far as those brands go. We have the LUMIX series. Those products were always handled by our Pro division. But we always take that stuff back, and that helps determine what future products might be. So, let's see here. Rhett says, strange issue here. The AF plus MF, which I think lets you override autofocus with the focus ring, seems to be lens specific. So some lenses will cancel AF, some won't, and even camera to camera. So in the menu option, AF plus MF, the basic function behind it is pretty much what you've described, Rhett. It's an override for autofocus. It is going to depend on what focus mode you're in. I would have to play around with it more. I've never really used it much because autofocus has always gotten where I need it to go. But the concept behind it is, say I'm using autofocus single, so I focus once, it confirms, but if it's macro and maybe the focus point's not fine enough to pick the exact point, while I'm half pressing the shutter, I can then use the manual focus ring and that overrides it. So I would just double check, Rhett, make sure that it's the same conditions for each time you've tested, because it shouldn't be changing between camera. It's more dependent on what focus mode you're in. But I can always look deeper into it as well. Like I said, it's not a mode that I've used often, but always happy to try to, take a look at it. I want to stream my painting and sketching in YouTube. I use the Tether app, but the quality is low. How can I stream higher quality? This is a really good question. So there's a couple things that you can do when it comes to streaming, and this will be true for pretty much any camera. This isn't necessarily a LUMIX specific thing. There are parts of it that can be LUMIX specific. In general, it's highly recommended to use some sort of capture card. If that's, something from Elgato, if that's, which is the products that I use, either capture card like an HD60, which is a little bit older of a model now, it's 1080p, which is fine. Use one of those, or there's a 4K, PCIe card if you're on PC. You can use, if you're in the newer cameras, you can use USB-C to also do live streaming. So you've got a couple different options there, all that can provide some good, kind of quality bumps for you. If you want to go, kind of really involved with it, you could always look at something like a switcher. Like I use an older A10 Mini. That lets me put into 4 cameras, take the USB, plug that into the computer, and it acts as a webcam. So those are definitely ways that you can improve the stream quality. The other kind of major factor for live streaming and trying to get really good quality for the stream will also come down to bitrate and your compression. So, for example, these streams, we stream in 4K. I don't stream in the highest 4K anymore because I don't want to do 60p streaming. It wasn't really proving a huge benefit from the times that I was doing it. But I stream at 30 megabytes per second. So it's 30,000 kilobytes. With that, that's based on YouTube's kind of recommendations. YouTube has a list of recommended bit rates that you should kind of have your streaming software set to. Twitch would be a different story. Twitch has very specific settings that it recommends you to use. But those settings are there to kind of make sure that, one, you're feeding enough information. You can have a really high resolution stream, but your bit rate is too low, so then it's looking very macro blocked, and it just doesn't really look the best. So making sure you're having enough bit rate for the resolution frame rate combination that you're working with will also be important in that nature. And then also just the last little thing is just what encoding format you want to use. There's NVIDIA, which has the NVENC encoder. There's I think there's AV1 encoding now on some devices. That might be the Intel graphics cards. So I'm not 100% sure on all of those. I just have always used NVIDIA's NVENC. or NVENC. That's kind of just been the most stable that we've used for quite a while. If I stream on my MacBook, it uses, I guess, like Metal or whatever Apple's GPU accelerated decoding and encoding is. But all of those little things can have an impact on the image quality that you're going to be sending up into YouTube. If there's more info on that you want, you can always just ask again or ask for more detail. So, whoa, thank you, YouTube. Let's see here. Let's see here. The next one I got that's tagged is from Rhett. It says, the live streaming via USB-C is something I'm actually doing today, so any guidance would be great. Yeah, so as far as like the live stream, like the USB live streaming, couple questions actually. Rhett, are you... I would assume you're talking about using USB-C as the webcam function, so from camera to your computer over USB-C to have it show up as a webcam. If that's the case, yeah, like I have this, even though we stream in 4K, this camera, it's an S1 Mark II is USB-C out as the webcam, so that's 1080-30 that I'm using, and then I just put it on a 4K timeline. Now, I'm using an anamorphic lens, so that also de-stretches the image in OBS, which makes up for some of the resolution difference between 1080p and 4K because of the way it stretches the image. So it's a minor resolution difference on the 4K canvas. But if you're doing like streaming directly from the camera, you can also do that. Obviously, it depends on which camera you're using. The most important thing is just making sure that the encoder you're using is using enough bitrate for it. I would use something like Speedtest or Fast.com, like one of those things that will tell you what your connectivity is, at least from your computer to your router and with all the overhead that's involved. And make sure that whatever bitrate you're choosing, you're not more than, I believe, whatever bitrate you choose, you should have at least a third of that bitrate more headroom available on your network. So, like I have 5 gig symmetrical with Google Fiber, so using 30 megabyte streaming is perfectly fine. It's well within, you know, what my service providing is. When I would do things in like, you know, on the road where, you know, maybe I only have a gig up or down, and that's lucky if it does. If I've done streaming from, say, like hotels while we're out at trade shows, you know, in some cases you're talking you've got 25 meg download. That's where you want to be really careful with what your bitrate is. But when you set your bitrate, that's just what you got to watch out for as far as the streaming goes. Is the smoother image quality on the newer cameras something that was changed due to user request? The S1II seems like a good balance between the S1H and the S5II sharpness. I mean, there's always changes that happen over, you know, product releases. When it comes to general image quality, there's a couple core tenets that are followed within us. It's usually, you know, the color, so the color reproduction, the image processing pipeline. A lot of it stays as similar as it can. The biggest things that you see that are probably the main differentiation between the different setups is that the original S1 series, so the S1, S1H, and the S5, all used a very similar version of a 24 megapixel sensor. The S1 Mark IIs, the S5 Mark IIs, they're all using different sensors than what the original series were. So you have inherent differences in the way those sensors process or generate an image, and then the processor has to take that data to create it. You also have some generational differences there between processors to, you know, our Venus engine to the L squared engine. You have PDAF arrays that are on the new sensors that weren't available in the older sensors. All of these things kind of impact the image quality performance. That's not to say that it's, universally always going to be the same. I know, like, in some cases, some people prefer the way, Blackmagic RAW looks over HDMI or ProRes RAW versus the internal performance there. And comparing an HEVC and H.265 compression versus RAW or external RAW or even ProRes, you have very different performance metrics between all of them. They're all used for different purposes. So to say that it's not user request is, kind of disingenuous. There's definitely user feedback that goes into the image quality performance. There's also, market response in general. What is it that collectively, as a whole, do filmmakers and photographers look for image quality wise? We've talked about this with like optical low pass filters. While there's definitely an understanding in some areas where an optical low pass filter, especially in a photography mentality, can be greatly beneficial, the fact of the matter is that the majority of the industry, of people that are buying cameras, that want to buy a camera, don't want that. They would prefer the sharper image. And unfortunately, that's what, in most cases, when you're talking about products that are built for everybody, if that is a much more important component for the majority of people, that's a much harder thing to determine on a, quote unquote mass market product that you would not deploy or that you would change or take away. That's not to say that, for the use cases where things like an optical low pass filter are incredibly important, that doesn't mean that the companies aren't listening to you. Definitely doesn't mean that we're not listening to you. It's more looking, like, taking one step back, looking at the entire portfolio of the products and determining, like, okay, what should go where based on what we've built the product for, if that makes sense. So things like the sharpening from S1II series, the image that the S1II produced, comparative to what is alternatively available out there, they were all pretty similar in performance. If you're someone coming as a legacy LUMIX user, yeah, I can recognize that some people have seen, some differences in the way things are performing or being produced. But again, I want to make it clear, it doesn't mean that there's no one listening to that kind of feedback. That feedback does always help with future products, future iterations. Usually stuff like that you wouldn't see in a firmware update. And I know everyone's going to hark back to the S1H, all that kind of that conversation. Very different conversations than what some people have brought up recently. So let's see here. Luke, this one I do want to answer. Might be in the minority, but I'm thinking about moving back to MFT, Micro Four Thirds. Do you see LUMIX continuing to support the system? Absolutely. Micro Four Thirds, this is one of the things, I guess, I always am confused by some of the mentality that we see out in the market. People think that because there isn't an update every year or every couple of months, or there aren't, new lenses coming out every 6 months or so and stuff like that, people immediately assume that there's no support being put behind a category. And the truth is it's further from the truth. The reality is Micro Four Thirds is the oldest mirrorless format in the market, period. We were the first company to release a mirrorless interchangeable camera. It was the G1. Olympus followed shortly after that. They were the OGs. They were the original cameras that were mirrorless. We built this entire shift in the industry. So that carries a couple of things with it. That means that you also have probably the most, what do I say? You have the most mature system in the industry. You want lenses? It's got possibly, I think, and I'd have to fact check the exact numbers on this, but I still think today it has the largest number of lenses available in varying focal lengths, from telephoto to prime, to standard zoom, standard, wide angle zoom, all that kind of fun stuff. So what that means is that you can either spend time, effort, and money in revamping the things that already exist, which modern day people kind of give companies a lot of headache about, kind of repackaging or refreshing, kind of old stuff just to make it new. And we've never really been heavily into that kind of concept. There are some examples of things that we've refreshed over the time, like 12 to 35, 35 to 100, now with the Leica versioning. But usually those things happen when, basically there's a reason that we have to do it. So hardware or a new series comes out and you want to make sure that you have matched versions for it. But outside of that, you start looking at like, okay, well, what else really would be looked for in that line? And I know a lot of people are going to say, oh, we want an ultra compact GM style camera in micro four thirds. And believe me, we hear that conversation all the time. Fact of the matter is that, one, GM series, as much as I know a lot of people like it, I liked it to a point, but I was also still in sales at that point. I didn't work for Panasonic when the GM cameras came out. I was someone working behind a counter to try and sell them, and I emphasize try to sell them. They never sold well. The endeavor was, from an outside perspective, it was interesting. It was a cool camera at the time, but it was, people just didn't want it. So, over time, those things happen, and, cult followings happen behind some of these products as they become harder and harder to find, and that's great. That's not a basis to justify, on its own, that's not a basis to justify, reviving an entire series because, we love what we used to like. There's also limitations that you run into. Everyone wants... And this is the crazy thing. Anytime I've ever seen the conversations asked, and even on the Petapixel love letter to the GM5 that Chris made, which I thought was awesome. It's funny how if you read through the comments, it very quickly turns into, I want a G9 Mark II in a GM5 body. Well, I hate to break it to you, not physically possible. It ain't going to happen. The technology doesn't exist to miniaturize things like the stabilization unit. People say a group of people will say that they're fine with a electronic first curtain shutter, but then you also get the same number of people that claim that, no, that would not be good, you need a full shutter. Like, all of those things happen. So if you take a look at everything across the board, in its relevancy to everything that's available, it means that as a system gets more mature, the decisions on what comes out next will start to take longer between those periods because you're trying to release something or build upon something that actually provides you benefit. That isn't necessarily just a throwback piece, kind of things like that, or like old school view just for the sake of being an old school view, because that works in some cases. More often than not, it does not work. But all of that to be said, these are the kind of conversations that are happening all the time. Doesn't matter if it's full frame or micro four thirds. There are always people looking at, what is micro four thirds need? What technology is available? With the G9 Mark II and the GH7 and to some extent the GH6, it was the first time in a very long time that the resolution has been increased in micro four thirds sensors for a commercial product. And that took so long because you have to make sure that, hey, if we're going to go up in resolution, we can't go backwards in image quality. The common mentality is higher resolution equals worse low light, or because of smaller pixels per a given area. The G9 Mark II, the GH7, and to some extent the GH6 all proved that that wasn't the case. We were able to go to 25 megapixel and outperform even the most modern 20 megapixel sensors as far as raw image quality goes. So things like that just take time. Those kinds of conversations are constantly happening. So when it comes to Micro Four Thirds, it is still a core pillar of our business. We have a massive love for the format in what it has evolved to become. And I think recognizing that over time, just because something started as one thing doesn't mean that it has to stay that way for its entirety of existence. People's requirements change, people's desires change for products, and as that happens, products change as well. Goals for products change as well. So when Micro Four Thirds came out in its original form, yes, it was the smaller, lighter alternative to DSLRs. DSLRs were massive. They had very limited video capabilities. Micro Four Thirds offered, big gains for that, and offered an opportunity to have a really high-powered camera for the time in a smaller form factor that you'd be more likely to carry with you. Modern era, it's not as clear-cut and dry as that anymore. People want higher and higher quality video performance. They demand it, or they won't buy a product. And, physics gets in the way sometimes for what people want. So, Micro Four Thirds is 100% still a system that we're supporting. It's not going anywhere. Yeah. You just get full frame now as well. And as you can see, we get... this would be a good example, actually, as to why I can tell you Micro Four Thirds is not going anywhere. So, G9 Mark II and GH7, released the concept of dynamic range boost, where, we're able to do, parallel processing of, the sensor for better noise performance and overall image quality. Well, that is now something that's been realized in full frame in the S1 Mark II. So if it hadn't been done in that series, you still wouldn't see it in a full frame format because of what that development has been able to allow us to do. So Micro Four Thirds and our full frame line, the L mount, work hand in hand in very many ways to help, push each other as far as technologies, performance, image quality, all that kind of fun stuff. That's a really long answer on that one question as to whether or not we're sticking with Micro Four Thirds. But hopefully it helped, Luke. Manny says, want to ask if the real-time LUT is off, then it will record in vlog. Will this be the exact vlog, or is it baked in Rec 709 like vlog? Because the real-time LUT is on, it's baked 709 recorded. Okay, so real-time LUT, if you choose the real-time LUT profile in the camera, it is vlog. It's vlog v-gamut. I know there is, I think it's Media Info. Media Info, I have had bugs in Media Info's report back that tells you that it's like in BT 709 when it's not. And I've had Media Info and some of the other metadata readers that as you're like actually using them, you update one version of it and then all of a sudden you're getting completely different information because where it registers to read metadata changes. So yeah, if you're shooting real-time LUT and you have the LUT turned off, so you're just not selecting one to apply on it, it's vlog v-gamut. When you apply a LUT, that's when things change, and it will either bake into 709, or if you're in photo, it's sRGB. The difference is there. This is why, like I talked about last week, you can do things like record vlog on the camera, have proxies set when using the real-time LUT mode or the color profile, have your proxy set to have the LUT embedded into it. This way you get your vlog and then you have a second proxy file that would have the conversion LUT or whatever, creative LUT, applied to that separately. So yeah, you shouldn't have any issues with that. Rhett says, I feel like the internal settings for real-time LUT should be consistent, right? Like noise, reduction, sharpness, and even grain, but they reset if you ever change the profile. I have to double check on that, Rhett. I don't... So since we deployed the updates for real-time LUT, where... like on the S9, and we've brought that to all the other cameras where I can just assign one that's already tagged to a profile. I haven't really gone into the real-time LUT menu to change anything. What I would do, like if I want to have a bunch of different settings change and have them, kind of be different settings, that's where if you set it up in real-time LUT with the different looks or the profiles, that's where I'd end up wanting to save that to like my photo style 1 or 2 or something like that. So I'd go to my photo style, do all my setups to it, and save it out that way, because you can use real-time LUT that way instead. The real-time LUT option, to my knowledge, shouldn't be changing anything. The only time that I can see that it would is if you're jumping from like vlog to a standard profile, because real-time LUT as the named profile in the camera is, for the most part, if you manually select it, designed as vlog if you load a LUT that doesn't know what it's supposed to be tagged to. So hopefully that helps. Peter says, I would love to watch a video on LUMIX USA channel focused on G9 Mark II photographers. We got very nice content about GH7 creators. I'm curious how others are using the amazing G9 Mark II. Yeah, it's definitely something I think is warranted for some content on our page with it. I think given that so many people recognize us as a video brand, usually you just see some of that stuff come up a little bit easier. But I can always talk with the not engineering team. I can always talk with the marketing team, see like what kind of possibilities we have with that from a photographic perspective. Is it possible to rotate waveform monitor, vector scope, and histogram displays when the camera is rotated vertically? It's confusing to use waveform monitor when recording vertically. No, unfortunately, our UI and system doesn't allow 90-degree rotation. So, my S5 Mark II has a broken shutter button. Half press doesn't work anymore, but full press works. How do I get help to fix this? 2 years since I bought it here in Finland. You would contact your local Panasonic, like whoever handles service and support for your region, and get the camera sent into them for service and support. That would be the first step. If at least here in the US, I know if you wanted, you could just go back to your dealer who you bought it from and have them coordinate sending it, but I don't know, I'm not 100% sure if it works the same way outside of the US. But yeah, you would contact your local Panasonic service and support team. You could try contacting your local Panasonic social media platform and look to see if you can get some support there. They might be able to point you in a direction to kind of like where you should look. But that's 100%, that's what I would do. Let's see here. Whoa. I love how YouTube just straight up, as you move through, just like jumps straight through comments all the way to the most recent. I think, all right, so that was FC's question. There's the Finland question. Here we go. See here, my S5 Mark II also has broken shutter. 2 years passed, need to take it to service center, but disappointed with the QC of the shutter button as many users have this issue. So I've looked into this. It's a handful of it's a smaller group of people. No matter what, in any product, if you're ever having issues, definitely send it to service and support and have them take a look at it. Thanks for the reply. One more doubt. I try to use my iPhone as an external monitor via USB using LUMIX Flow. Later I realized I have the S9, so it's not supported. By any chance, it's possible with the S9. I don't believe Flow is going to get support on the S9. The only cameras we have confirmed LUMIX Flow is planned to come to is the S5 Mark II, the Mark IIX, and the GH7. No clue about if S9 is going to get it or not. Yeah, sorry. Rhett says the IBIS and E stabilization is crazy good, even as good as my as many action cams. One thing that isn't there though is horizon level. Has this feature been requested? Yeah, it has been requested. Like our camcorders have a like kind of horizon like level shot is what we call it in the camcorders. I don't know what the limitation is for horizon on it, but we have asked about that before. I don't know if it's something to do with the size of the sensor or like if it would actually be like how effective it would be for level, because the other thing you got to remember with action cams and level or camcorders and auto leveling, usually they're much smaller sensors and the area can be moved a lot further, where full frame cameras like in open gate you wouldn't be able to use something like that because we're pretty much using as much of the space as you can. But it is something that we can bring back up with the engineering team. So Dave says, using my S1II and S5II, I noticed a few times parts of the grid marker lines were not as easy to see on the screen. Is there a way to change the contrast or colors of the grid lines so they are easier to see on the screen? If not, I would like to request that. Dave's, I assume you mean just like the rule of thirds and like that set of grid lines. I can ask about that. There isn't a way to change the thickness or the color of those grid lines. But I know, like, as screen resolutions change and as viewfinder resolutions change, those things can sometimes appear stronger or less strong. So I'll have to look into that one and see. But I know that there's not a way to change it, like, as of right now. Rhett says, thankfully Kalari is working on their optical low-pass filters and others. It would be great to see an official partnership to work with them. Funny you should mention the Kalari stuff. Not saying that this isn't like breaking news or anything like that. It's not that big. But I actually did. So if those don't know, this is what Rhett's referencing here. Kalari Vision, which is an awesome company. They're the ones that converted. I'll show you here. Kalari Vision is the ones that converted this camera for me. This is my original S1R. This is a full spectrum converted S1R. So they take the cover glass, the original cover glass out, and now it's a full spectrum sensitive camera. So I can put filters in front of it and I can record in different spectrums of color. So if I use something like this filter, which has a very, very blue look on it. So if I hold up like very blue, this is their IR chrome filter. So I can get that kind of old school Kodak I'm like blanking on the name of the Kodak film that was used, but it's infrared, but it's tuned very specifically. So Kalari Vision released these magnetic clip-in filters for the L mount, specifically for L mount cameras. What's cool about these is that they clip into the area. You get a couple different options with it that you can choose from. Not necessarily the least expensive options out there, but from my experiences, I can say that they've had some really good, like amazing filters. All of my infrared filters that I have from them are spectacular. In fact, actually, they should be arriving to me today, ironically. But yeah, these are a pretty cool thing to see now available for the LUMIX cameras. If you look up Dan Hopkins' YouTube and some of his commentary that he's done, he has some experience with these. I think with the Pro Mist filter, and you get a bunch of different options. Like for those of us that are using infrared or want to do astro work, you've got a bunch of different versions here, and then you've got some NDs and mist diffusion filters as well. So it's a pretty cool system to be able to magnetically drop in filter solution. If you're someone who likes to just basically always run like a Pro Mist, you can drop that in there and you don't really ever have to worry about it. So, but yeah, that's a cool call out there, Rhett. And yeah, I believe I saw that they are working on an optical low pass filter drop in. So for those of you that really do want one, you could go that route. And convert your camera with optical low pass. The nice thing is these are non-invasive, so you're not taking anything apart. It's a frame that mounts into that space. So, hey there, I got an S1 Mark II and the S1 Mark IIe today. Got them mostly set up. They'll be in our in-house docu cameras. Really excited to see them in action. That is awesome. Excited to hear that you got them. Welcome to the live channel. Questions as you're using them, always feel free to reach out and talk to us here about it. Rhett says, I think people that even shoot majority full frame should really consider having one Micro Four Thirds camera because they have many distinct advantages and are rock solid reliable. Yeah, I mean there's a massive kind of benefit and truth there to that. Full frame cameras, yes, there is a massive desire, within a lot of, creators, photographers, videographers to want to go full frame, and, you have to go full frame for everything, but you're still going to run into various different limitations by going full frame. Sensor technology in full frame sensors, or 35 millimeter sensors, still isn't necessarily the most cutting edge as far as what technologies are being deployed and how they can be utilized. If we look at in general performance of imaging devices, you have a lot of cool stuff that's happening on things like mobile devices and what these tiny little sensors are being able to do when paired with different things like an SoC that's in a phone. You don't see any of that in the larger censored space. Micro Four Thirds sensors for the longest time have always been able to read out faster without necessarily having to make the same choices that you would in full frame. So going stacked or partially stacked, you don't necessarily have to do that as quickly as you would, in full frame on a Micro Four Thirds system. Our G9 Mark II and the GH7 are kind of a testament to that they can get really close to the same read speeds without having to take the hit that traditionally a stacked or partially stacked sensor design would entail. When we look at things like, dynamic range boosts being deployed. I mentioned this before, like Micro Four Thirds, that's where that kind of thing started, before that got recently adopted in with the S1 Mark II. Those are capabilities that in Micro Four Thirds have been awesome because it helped in the stills functionality. It made big gains in the video side to where your dynamic range, your flexibility of the footage parallels, some full frame cameras out there. Well, now with the S1 II, you get the same benefits. You get much better performance in the video side compared to other, at least in the S1 Mark II's case, a partially stacked design versus, non-stacked sensors, which non-stacked sensors will typically have better dynamic range because you're not adding a bunch of electronics behind, in the sensor area. But even in the still side, being able to, utilize dynamic range boost, you're getting, much more flexibility to work with the stills out of the camera with the RAW. Anyone that takes the images from an S1 Mark II, puts them into a RAW software and really starts messing with, heavy pushes and pulls, you can see the benefits there. So knowing that a lot of that kind of technology comes from the Micro Four Thirds side, it's a big benefit to keep an eye on Micro Four Thirds cameras. For some people, that even if it's I want the camera that I can just kind of throw in my bag and hang around with me. Even if I wanted to use, where is it? Like, this is my LX100 Mark II. This is an old camera, but it's still a Micro Four Thirds sensor that's in this camera, and it uses a 1-inch-ish area of it because it's the multi-aspect design. Things like this, they're super fun. You can get a smaller kit out of it. Not even just for the higher end, professional use cases. So definitely take a look at Micro Four Thirds. I mean, I think if you read over on some of the forums, you'll find an entire, army of people that will tooth and nail fight about how much fun and how underrated the G100D is, as even a stills camera. So I think in general, people should have an open mind as far as imaging goes, the products that we use. So I am once again writing to ask why Samyang refuses to make more of their lenses for L mounts. Where can I send a strongly worded letter? You'd have to find a contact for Samyang. Unfortunately, I don't have one. D Creative, I just received the 24-60. I noticed that the lens function button doesn't allow the option to choose the aperture with the S5II. Am I doing something wrong? No, you're not doing anything wrong. As far as I know as of now, the lens function button assignment and some of the control ring stuff is limited only onto the S1II series. I have no idea if or when that can be updated onto the S5II series cameras. Yeah. Feature request. I really do think it would be an advantageous thing to be able to enable or disable subject detection via lens function button. Yeah, that I would agree. I can push that in with the engineering team too. Brendan says, I just had a flash photography shoot with the S1R2 on my S5IIX. When I have my Godox Flash X Pro O trigger plugged in, the brightness it brightens the image so I can see what I'm composing just for monitor. On the S1R2, using the exact same setup, I can't get it to auto exposure for compensation purpose. Which trigger will work for that? This actually brings up a good point. Here we go. So we have a compatibility list here. So you said you have the S1R Mark II? Yeah, S1R Mark II. So we're going to go to the compatibility chart here. Let's go to third-party accessories. So we have a whole list of compatibility with third-party accessories. Let's go to S1R Mark II. This was recently updated as of June 24th. So the body firmware should be on 1.2 for this list to be accurate. If we scroll down, you'll see we have mobile batteries, we have AC adapters, Ethernet adapters, raw output, timecode, flash. So this is for on-camera flashes. This would be from Panasonic or OM Solutions, formerly Olympus. But right here, as far as Godox goes, right here, the following have been confirmed to work with TTL flash, manual flash, and high-speed sync. As far as the flashes that have been validated, it is the V1-0. So it's the V1 flash in the Olympus protocol. So your basic operations confirmed there. Your commander and receiver functionality is also confirmed there. And then as far as the triggers go, it's the X3 trigger. It is... this trigger. So it's this one. If you're using... so for constant preview, I encourage you to take a look at Manny Ortiz's video on the S1R Mark II. Between the S52X and the S1II series, we changed how we do constant preview, because that's what you're seeing. You're seeing the constant preview toggle on and off when the flash is plugged in. So my guess is that the X Pro O flash from the trigger from Godox isn't telling the camera or identifying to the camera that it's using that, which would disable constant preview. Yeah. But if you want to use the flash that's actually been validated on the S1R2, or a commander that's been validated, it would be the X3 O. So it would be the Olympus version of the Godox X3. Feature request. I really do think it would be Edge. Oh, yeah, we talked about that one. Where do we go? Andrew, I have like 100 messages back and forth with support over the past month as I returned my S1R2 for the S1II and they cannot get a gift card processed. Just brutal customer service. What region are you in? Yeah, I feel for you. I don't know what region you're in. YouTube doesn't let me find that information, which is a good thing. But if you can give me a little more information, I can see if it's a US-based thing. I can at least take a look into it, see if there's anything that I'm able to do. Timmer, I use Godox flashes and the Godox X3 to trigger them. Works okay. I don't think HSS works, though. Yeah, so HSS, or high-speed sync, is validated on the V1O. It's not necessarily validated on the other flashes. Like, primarily, I used... I don't even think I have it on my desk. Yes, I do. Primarily, for the longest time, I've used this flash. It was a V862. And high-speed sync does work on it, but not with the X3. Stuff like that's going to be more down to Godox updating, because now that they have a validated, like, we've been able to confirm that TTL, manual flash, and high-speed sync works with the V1O, that would be more on them to bring what they know works on a V1O to the rest of their flashes, to things like the V860. Now, to be fair, I have not firmware updated this one in a long time, because I switched to using like the studio lights if I'm going to go out and do stuff. So maybe I should do that and take a look. But yeah. Any hint for a future update of bird subject detection on the S1R2? Animal subject detection is not doing the job in a lot of circumstances. If you could identify what circumstances it's not, because it shouldn't change. I mean, I'm able to pick birds out of, crazy overgrown foliage here in Texas. Now, to be fair, I am not a wildlife photographer. I do not claim to be one. But if you can give me some information of like, hey, in these certain circumstances, it's not working, just saying that it's not working in a lot of circumstances doesn't help anybody to be able to kind of identify where the challenges are. It's impossible to track something down like that. Cam is here. Hi, Cam. How are you, man? Here, Timmer brought this up last time. I think auto white balance adjustments should stay within custom photo styles, and reset once you switch back to regular ones. Right now, auto white balance adjustments persist in standard, etc. That's right, you did bring this up. And I didn't have a chance to look through it. Let me do a little research on this, Timur, and I'll try to put together a general feedback for you, because I will be live again next Thursday, and I'll actually have some time to prepare more for that one, because I have a more set schedule for the next week and a half. Yeah, let me look a little more into that one for you. On my S9, there's no front recording light, so I can't tell if it's recording. Is there a setting for this? No, the S9 does not have a tally lamp. So you can, as I'm Mad says, you can try using the red frame. So if you have the screen facing towards you, if you turn red frame recording on, that will put a red box around the frame of your LCD. Gives you a good indication that, like, hey, it's recording. So, where do we go here? I demand the next stream be an IR only. I mean, it'd be a little challenging because I don't know how much IR light these lights put out, but I mean, hey, I could stream in black and white. I could try streaming in other formats. Maybe we will do that next week. Maybe I'll hook up my OG S1R and we'll I'll have to see how it looks first, because it may look like utter trash in a interior room. Where did we go? Jeremiah. Hey, Big Cook. Does the S1R2, S1II have APS-C crop modes in photo? No, unfortunately we don't. And actually, I gotta message you later. Yeah, unfortunately, as far as photo goes, we don't have a forced APS-C crop mode in photo. Like, I know other brands do, and this is something I have asked for years. But yeah, unfortunately, we don't. If you put an APS-C lens on it, it'll force it, but yeah, and that doesn't necessarily help. But yeah. I just want to give a quick shout out to the GH7, goated Lumix camera. Yeah, it's a really solid camera. Said Big Cook the S1II, so he doesn't force to use a Nikon. If he had pro services, he would have series. Yeah, I definitely feel for you, Cook. Yeah, I watched that video. That was a little rough. Let's see here. Horizon level is a good idea. The level indicator could also be more prominent. Yeah, there's the level system on there. It's always kind of like hit or miss with some people really like it. Others think it's way too crowded. I just saw a comment over on Reddit that was like, people don't want to use that. It's like, so. Gary, on GH7, how do you get 4K 120 to have AF and playback in slow motion in camera? The G9 Mark II did this so well. On the GH7, I seem to be MOV 4K 120, but manual focus, and it doesn't play back in slow motion. VFR has a menu. HFR is hidden. Crap. I don't have my GH7 to go through that menu. So the GH7 and all the cameras, you have the HFR option, which is not going to slow down the footage. So if you're shooting in 4K 120, it's going to be 4K 120. The variable frame rate option, or the slow and quick option, that's where you're going to be able to do the slowdown. McCary, I don't have a GH7 on me, and I can't remember the menu system exactly where it is on that camera. So it may take me a little bit to get an answer for you. But the GH7 and the G9 Mark II do have the same capabilities. I think they might be named slightly different between the two. So I'll have to look a little further into that for you. Roger says, I still use my GX8 with the Nocticron 42.5. That is a great lens. If I remember right, I think that's my 42.5. That could also be the 12 Summilux. I can't remember. I've had these for over 10 years at this, almost 10 years at this point. Summilux 25, and the GM1 with a 15 Summilux. That one I know is the 15 Summilux. For some photography, even though I invested in the S5, S5II and lately the S1R2 for my professional work. Yeah. It's fun having, those cameras that, either you have just more enjoyment shooting with when it's in a casual sense. I think that's one of the beauties of having kind of multiple mounts within the series is like, hey, I love my full frame stuff. Believe me, I do. But every once in a while, it's like, no, I just want to take a quick little trip with, a smaller, lighter version of the camera, even if it's an older one, and it's cool. It's why I like that LX100 Mark II. It's why I do like the G100 and the G100D, which is the modern version of it. They're great. They're fun to shoot with. Doogieham. Can we have a firmware upgrade on the S1II series that enables the rotation of the screen information on the LCD and viewfinder to vertical mode when shooting in portrait orientation? I've asked about that for a long time at this point. I don't know if there's something that's not hardware in the camera to be able to do it. I know that being able to swap UI and stuff like that, it's not just as easy as like, just, shift stuff around. I'm not assuming anyone thinks that. But I have asked for it, so. Is it possible to get 4K 60 422 in-camera open gate for the GH7? No. My understanding is no. The thermal and the processing overhead for 422 4K 60 in open gate is too high. Even if a sensor could do it or like has an operating mode for that, you also have to account for what's the power demands to run at that mode, what's the processor demands to do it, was the processor ever designed to do it, so does it have the ability to encode the video that way, what's the thermal implications for it, jumping from 420 to 422 and then adding in 60p and then adding in open gate is a ton of information. So my understanding is no. That's not something that's possible on the GH7. Is there any good reason why the G100D doesn't have real-time LUT? Yes, the processor can't do it. The Venus engine that's used in prior cameras to the S1II series, so before we moved into the L2 engine, doesn't have the capability to do real-time LUT. So, unfortunately, cameras that came out before that or aren't running the newest engine, they're not going to get real-time LUT because they physically can't do it. Still have my first mirrorless camera, the GF1. Still a good-looking camera. Yes, it is. Has anyone tested the dust protective Kalari filters? Feels like a great idea on the S5II since we don't have the cool sensor shield thing. Yeah, I mean, that's definitely one thing to take a look at with it. It'll fit. It's designed for our cameras. It's worth taking a look at. I want to buy a Micro Four Thirds, but now I have a full frame S5II. But honestly, I like the image came out of the GH5 in natural standard Cine D profile much more than natural standard in the S5II. Yeah, I mean, there's differences in how the sensors react, how the sensors produce their image, because the sensors collecting the data and then the processors do it. There's also processing differences between the cameras. Some people really like the look of GH cameras. In fact, a lot of videos that some people may watch out there on YouTube that you really like the way they look, a lot of times you'd be surprised what cameras they're doing. I can tell you just from observing, watching, consuming YouTube and content that I do, I can name two very prominent YouTube channels that still to this day are using GH cameras. I don't know exactly which GH cameras, but one of them, Jerry Rig Everything. Anytime you look at the top-down camera, that's a GH camera with adapted lenses on it, and it's awesome. The footage looks amazing out of it. And the other one is actually an old school computer channel, LGR, Lazy Game Review, that I love watching. I know, at least last I saw, he was using the GH cameras, which is spectacular. So if you like very specific looks, and maybe you're consuming certain types of content and you're like, I really like the way that's looking, whether it's, fully edited or not, a lot of times you may be surprised what kind of camera it's coming from. And honestly, a lot of times what kind of effort is being put into color grading, because a lot of times some people really like the way, natural or the Cine-like profiles work when you're going to be delivering for different platforms. And maybe it can help save you some time. Maybe maybe there are times where you don't have to be doing as much work for color grading and all of this other stuff if an out of the camera profile works exactly kind of how you want it. There's nothing wrong with that, depending on where you're sending the content to. So, I used the S1R2 for a job a couple of days ago, filming drones in action. Hybrid zoom was a godsend. Yes, hybrid zoom is fun to use, especially if you use it knowing what you're going to use that image for. Maximum hybrid zoom range is great for social. It's more than enough resolution for things like Instagram and, I don't know, what the hell is it called now? X or whatever. I sound like an old curmudgeon man here. Like any social platform that you'd want to load to, hybrid zoom is going to be more than enough resolution for that at its maximum range. But man, it's fun to be able to get some like crazy long reach, and actually be able to visually see it. Plus, when you're shooting with RAW, you still have the RAW file at its full normal optical zoom and full resolution. So you're not stuck with it if you're shooting RAW and JPEG. But you do have to shoot RAW and JPEG. Feature request might have been asked before, but I would love if the new S1 cameras could detect a timecode audio signal from Tentacle, for example, which as far as I know, it currently can't do. Yeah, that is correct. So we can't take in or encode timecode signal over audio. I would have to talk with Matt and some of the engineering team about if that's even possible. Something like that may actually require hardware because you have to find a way to decode that signal somehow. So I don't even know if that would be physically possible in the current cameras, but we can always ask and find out. Have you seen the recent crazy Sigma stuff? It's awesome. For some reason, that 12mm f1.4 isn't on L-mount. I hope it won't become a trend for them to skip L-mount crop glass. Well, given that 12mm, to my knowledge, it is an APS-C lens, and there aren't any modern, at least to my knowledge, I don't think there are any APS-C L-mount cameras. I don't know if I can blame them for not making it. If you don't have a camera that is APS-C on a mount, why would you make that version of the lens on that mount if you don't have any new camera or new customers to buy it? It just doesn't make any business sense, at least in my view. It does look really cool though, and I really do think that 200mm looks really sick. Don't know what I would ever shoot with it, but it's cool stuff. There's so many lenses available for L mount, and I think that's one of the surprising things is that some people still just don't get it, how many cool optics are actually available for the L mount system. So I know you guys don't make comments on future products, but if you guys ever release future small camera MFT interchangeable lens or fixed lens, please include log and 10-bit. I'll pass it on. Yeah. Could you confirm that the X3 will do the auto exposure thing? Let me see. Well, let me see if my X3 is charged. I haven't used it in a while. It is charged. All right, so got my X3 here. Give me 1 second. I gotta take my top handle off my rig. Move that to the side. I'll show you guys this rig in a second. Let's make sure I'm in photo. Set up here. Plug this in. This gives me... Alright, so there's that. So just plugging it in turns the constant preview system to where it does not show me the image. Okay, so it's not going to do it automatically for you. What you will do... Alright, let me... Yes. Okay, cool. So, when you put the trigger onto the camera, what you're going to do... Well, let me reset this. Right now, I have constant preview turned on. This is on my S1 Mark II, so this will be the same for the S1R Mark II. So I'm going to take the trigger, I'm going to put it on the camera, and you're going to see that the image darkens. So as I change... You're not seeing anything because my OBS, not OBS, my Blackmagic Design, there it goes. All right, let's start that over again. Okay, so it's off now, right? Not attached. You see that, like in this case, I'm in aperture priority, whatever. I put the trigger on, the image darkens down. This is what you don't want it to do. Because now as I make my changes, if I have to, you know, I'm shooting at, say, F8, and, well, even if I go, let's go manual. So I'm at F8, and let's say I'm at 2/50th of a second, and that would be like my exposure, right? Say this is my exposure. Well, I can't do anything. I can't frame this. But if I come in and I turn constant preview off, now I can. So what I think you can do, and let me see if I can... remember if this was in this menu or not. We're going to go through the settings here. What I'm looking for here is, all right, so I'm looking at constant preview. So what I can do is, now that I programmed that button for constant preview, I can have it set where... So I know, like right now, I'm not shooting with a flash. Let's say, let's bring this down to where I'm set as far as at least a decent looking image is. So let's say we're set here. I'm at 6400 ISO, 200th of a second, f1.8, right? So now I want to plug the flash on, and I'm going to be doing work with flash. But I need to, obviously in that case, because I'm going to be shooting with flash, I need to drop my ISO back down to 800. It's really dark. I can press the function button that I've assigned to toggle constant preview on and off. From my understanding, this is actually fairly similar to some other cameras as well when using flash. So it's not like we're the only ones that are set like this. Some companies, it's reversed. If you're trying to actually be able to preview depth of field or what the image is going to look like, you would have to enable it, where we're, you know, kind of 180 degrees out compared. So, Andrew Bell, yeah, US here. Okay, I'll ask C, because I don't work in customer service and I'm not within that team. I don't have access to, obviously, customer records. There's a lot of protections involved with stuff like that, so I can only ask that team to take a look into it for you. So, oh, where was that other one that I just saw? There's another question. Timmer, that makes sense. I have a V1P from my previous system. Yeah, you definitely want to make sure you're looking as far as the which version of flashes you're using. Top down, S1R2. Last week you mentioned changing a C1, C2, etc. setting by selecting shutter priority in the menu versus aperture. By shutter priority in the menu versus aperture priority and resaving the custom setting. Where is that? Yeah, so let's go to here. So if I change that out. So in the S1II series cameras, one of the things that you'll notice is if I go up into some of the custom settings here, you'll see exposure control in PASM. This option allows me to come in here and say, for video control, for photo control, how do I want my exposure mode being set up? So in the video side, if you're trying to set up your video settings across the board, and, you know, say you have C1 and you're set for aperture priority already, because that's how you've had the camera set up, what you can do is, instead of assigning the system based on the shutter dial up here, come in and just change this. So let's say this is like aperture priority right now, right? So, and let me make sure I go back into video. Is Blackmagic gonna respond? There we go. All right, so I'm in video, and PASM control in video mode will always put me in aperture priority. So right now you can see on the bottom left under the timecode readout, I'm in aperture priority. So I can then come in, I can save this to custom setting, custom mode. Let's do C1. Yes. So if I put my camera to C1, and I'm in C1 here, so if I come in and I go back up into that setting and I change this to, let's say, shutter priority, then come down, save mode, C2. Now what should happen, and I have not tested this prior, yeah, C2 is all of those settings saved for shutter priority. C1 is aperture priority. And that was changed while I was in C1, which was originally set up as aperture priority. I just manually changed what exposure mode I want it to use through software. So I'm not using the mode dial to change it. C2 now gets all of those settings and it's just converted over to the other mode. Hopefully that helps. Top down. Could you pin the compatibility link for flashes? Yes. Flash comp list for S1R2. There you go. McCary, send wildlife photographer Jeremy Knipe an S1R2. His S1R died in the mountains. I'll reach out to Jeremy. It's actually been a while since I talked to Jeremy. I'll reach out to him after the stream, find out how he's doing. FC, is there a way to autosave settings in C1, C2 settings? C1 aperture is f2.8, then change to f4, then switch to C2. Is there a way to autosave settings in C1, C2, etc.? Settings, i.e. C1 is aperture is f2.8, then change to f4, then switch to C2, f5.6, turn off. Switch to C1, turn on. I want f4, not 2.8. Kind of. So I say kind of because it's going to have unintended consequences for other settings that you have in the camera. So if you go to custom mode setting under the menu, you go to how to reload custom modes. If any of these are set to on and you perform that action, it's going to reset back to what you default loaded as the baseline. So right now I have change recording mode. So that means if I change from C1 to C2, when I go back between the two, it'll always revert them back to what they were initially set up as. So any white balance changes, any aperture changes, anything like that will revert to what they were originally carbon copied over for. If I have normally power on is also set to on. This means that when you would power the camera on, it will flash reset everything that's in the C1 modes to what you default set them up to. If you turn this off and you turn this off, your C1 through C whatever can be fully changed and will not reset to what you initially programmed them to. The reason why I say that could have unintended consequences is that includes everything that you've set up. So if you change frame rates and you don't remember that you did, now that frame rate will be changed when you power the camera back on. Maybe that's how you want it. That's fine. But it's a little off from what the idea of C1 through C whatever would be. Yeah, the other option you can do is you could come in here and set load data off for aperture, shutter speed, and ISO sensitivity. This means that when you make that initial saving to the setup, that means that it will not assign aperture, shutter, or ISO sensitivity as a default baseline. So if you know that you're going to create C1 because you want C1 to be exposure mode, white balance, picture profile, frame rate, resolution, like all that stuff, but you always want to still be able to go in and adjust your aperture, shutter, and ISO, and know that those aren't ever going to be like permanently locked into whatever the OG settings were, you could do it this way, but you would have to set the profile up with this turned off first, if that makes sense. So hopefully that helps, FC. I got about 2 more minutes, and then I have to wrap up for today's stream, unfortunately. Let's see here. There's no slow and quick on the GH7. That's right. The GH7 uses just VFR. Yeah, I got to get my GH7 back so I can run through the menus and take a look at that. Because I know that they can do the same thing. I haven't looked at it in a while. And I don't even have a G9 Mark II here with me either. Mine's still out on loan. Would like to request being able to select different pre-burst speeds on the S1R2. 40 FPS is a lot for the buffer capabilities. Maybe an option for 15, 20, and 40 would be nice. Yeah, I mean, I could pass it on to the team. I agree. I think a slower burst rate would be nice to have. I have no idea if it's possible, or if it's even something that they're planning. So we all love our small cameras. GF7 G100 owner, but I would once again echo bangings for a new generation premium compact. Yeah. I hear the commentary. Everyone hears the commentary. Yeah, just no clue if that's something that's going to actually be actioned on. So, is there any chance that any form of OpenGate 60 can come to the camera GH7? I mean, let me get my GH7 back, and we'll kind of look. I don't know if 60p OpenGate is possible on the camera, at least in like the full resolution, because like I said, like the heat generation, like as it sits, even the GH7, with as much as it's able to do, because it's pretty much downsampling almost any mode that is thrown at it. Downsampling adds a ton of heat into the system. Like the S1II, it's downsampling almost every option that you're using, where everybody else is either using a binned or skipped version, which is why you see different performance between others, but that's also why the image looks so good on the S1II compared to others. These are some little trade-offs that people have. Griffin still uses GH5 too. Yep, Griffin Hammond. Thanks for the insight about technical timecode. Didn't stop to think that it might require hardware. Yeah, and I'm not 100% sure if it does. It's definitely past my, understanding of electronics and how they interplay with processors, like stuff like this. So, yeah. Product request: full frame pancake lens, something like the MFT 20mm f1.7. You're a legend. Thanks for this, Sean. I'm happy to do these. I love these back and forth, especially these a little more casual streams where we just get to banter back and forth. I love teaching and showing y'all some cool stuff, like how to do this stuff, like with these cameras. But it's also fun to just just randomly chat about whatever topics you guys want to talk about for a day. So, MFT body to L mount adapters so we can have MFT and full frame adapters. People do that with other mounts adapting. Just silly thoughts. What about a teleconverter for MFT and a full frame with on-off switch 2x? So Micro Four Thirds lens mount and the L mount are within 0.25, I believe 0.25 millimeters of each other. It's 19.75 and 20 millimeters is the flange back distance. So adapters are not physically possible. You can't fit the electronics that are needed to do conversion. Especially because if you look... Yes, I do have one here. So, a couple things here. So for one, this is a Micro Four Thirds lens. This is a 45 to 175. If you look at the back of the lens, the contact pins on Micro Four Thirds are at the bottom of the lens mount. So they're right here. There's also the number of them. This is 70 to 300. The contact pins on the back of this are at the top of the lens mount. The flange back distance between these two is something like that. I mean, I can't even eyeball it, but it's 0.25 of a millimeter. What that means is that you don't have space to cross the conversions. So you can't get L mount on Micro Four Thirds because the mount is... you wouldn't get infinity focus. The other way around, you don't have the ability to actually have any of the translation hardware, and the lenses are designed to cover a quarter of the sensor size. So you'd always be at 1/4 of the sensor size with the lenses. Yeah, so... just tried that with the Godox X Pro Mark 1 and it worked. Thanks, Sean. Awesome. I'm glad that actually helped, at least for now, so that it's nice. I really like the X3 trigger. It's a really, really nice trigger. But if you don't have to get new hardware to make something work for what you have, I am always a fan of that as well. So, yeah, cool. Let's see here. Al says, childish lashing out. I know, but is annoyed to see all the YouTubers that complain that when Lumix has a new camera, all the shills have videos on the same day. All have videos. Yeah. There's a lot of, I think, crazy stuff online. Oh, I like this one. Favorite Battlefield 6 class and why is it engineer? I actually toss up between engineer and support. I was playing the beta. I was acting as support, and I was actually rezzing people. If you are a gamer and you are going to be playing Battlefield type games and you're playing that class, support the other team and also pay attention when people are crowding around. If you do go down, make sure you're notifying and pinging all the enemies around you so that you're not having your teammate run into a trap. That's probably a fun question to end this stream on. Aside from the fact that I'm back in playing 2042 now as well as I prep up for October. It's going to be a good October. BF6 is great. I love it. Cool. Out there. Yeah, thanks everybody for today's stream. It was a lot of fun. Lots of awesome commentary and questions. If you guys have topics that you want us to cover in the future, drop them as a comment after this video. So in the comment section at the bottom. It helps me, be able to just kind of plan for specific things that y'all want to actually talk about. I do my best digging through the Reddit forum, through Discord, YouTube comments to kind of figure out what is it that all of you are wanting to learn and see. So make sure to do that. If you liked the stream, give us a like. That helps us immensely in making sure these streams get kind of shown to people. But otherwise, yeah, we will be back next Thursday at 2 p.m. Here on YouTube. I hope you all have a great rest of your day. Have a great weekend. Get out there, create some cool stuff. If you haven't already, take a look. Join us over on Discord. It's a really fun community. It's an awesome conversation. I'm available over there. Matt is on there sometimes. You've got access to a ton of information and knowledge. And you also have a location where you can submit suggestions to us that we know our engineering team, myself, others are always able to watch as well. So these conversations don't have to just happen here on YouTube. They can also continue over on our Discord. Yeah. Otherwise, as I said, have a great day. Have an awesome rest of your weekend. Get out there, create some cool stuff. And we'll see you next Thursday, 2 p.m. right here on YouTube. Later, y'all.